The people we're involving mostly won a competition on Yammer to get into that room to help us start to think about this, because they're the people that are passionate about providing input into this process and coming up with solutions that are going to make a difference. So there's a range of people, that's the first thing. Yes, executive and normal people as well, but some different people from across the state that are actually going to experience what we implement. You'll have noticed a lot of craft and a lot of canvas and different approaches, which is really just trying to get some new input into what we do. You'll have noticed we've taken some ideas out of that process and already started to think about developing them up with districts, and that's really important. As Simone said, that local ownership and that district-based approach is key to this. And the other thing you might have spotted there is we had a wall in that room that talked about the child's story in their language. So Simone talked about our practice steps, but in a child's language, what are those practice steps? Because what we want to do is at every point link back solutions, ideas to that child's story. How's that going to actually have an impact? So design as default, we'll be continuing to do that. And this phase is really about those user stories, the needs, the opportunities, the things we can, as Martin said, hack out or find that's going to make a difference. Right? I know you're in your heads right now trying to translate how does that mean for my solution. We'll get to that. But at this point, we don't want to constrain that. We want to find the opportunities. So this process is part of that. As I said, we want your input. We want to get your ideas. We want to discover this as well. We only have a limited understanding of what's out there. We do want to prototype things, right? So we're doing that now with districts. It's likely when we get to procurement next year that there'll be some prototyping as part of that. We're not just going to throw you a document and then you throw it back at us, see what happens. We want to try things and see how it's going to work. We want to formally start to, as I said, build models where we can collaborate with our partners, non-government, other government agencies. We're doing independent research, we're going to do site visits, etc. We're doing lots of things that are different because we've got 6 months essentially. We're 1 month into a 6-month process to finish design. So the other thing, you might like to cover some of these, the other thing that came out of that 2-day event we ran was a series of principles that are really driving our program. So do you want to cover some of these? Yeah.
I think the reason that we wanted the principles and that we wanted to do it in a way that guided both our internal staff and vendors was that we didn't want to go down the track of having a couple of months of everyone being engaged and designing it and then handing it over and having someone build something and a couple of years bring it back. We also need to make sure that any of the engagement that we do, any of the research that we do, any of the design that we do comes back to those principles, and that at the end of the day we get a product or a set of products that achieve some of those outcomes or all of the outcomes that Simone outlined before. What we don't want is, as Greg said, a new system that just looks a little bit better, is a little bit easier to use and looks more modern. More modern would be good. But, I think we want a range of those things, and we want to make sure that we keep coming back to the principles. So any of you that have conversations with us at any point in this process, they're the kinds of things that we'll be talking about, and they're the things that we need people to think about. We want to make sure that that the things that we get are essentially light kind of technology solutions. There might be a whole lot of stuff going on in the background, but the people that are using it across both FACS and outside, both our NGOs and our clients, need to experience that in a way that is easy to use and that is light for them. And it needs to encourage relationships between the workers and the clients, and between clients and foster carers and a range of people. What we do have is a lot of stories that we can tell and that we continually hear every day about workers who have to put the same information in a number of times. So for example, if you were thinking about the 8-year-old girl that Simone spoke about, the worker that had removed that girl is likely to be sitting in that office for days and days, filling in possibly 10 to 12 different forms, filling in court documents, which can be kind of, this thick. And they would be putting exactly the same information in a lot of those forms manually each time, and then attaching it as a document to the system. Now, anyone in this room will know that that is probably the most inefficient way that we could do that. What we need are systems that allow them to get information in and put it in once in a way that means that our data will be better and more accurate, and pull it out when they need it. We also want to make sure that the technology is available and is easy to use and social and mobile for caseworkers and other people that are using it. You know, another story to demonstrate is the story that we heard last week of a caseworker in a small regional office. They live about an hour from their office, and so when they're on call in the middle of the night at 1 a.m, they get a call, they need to go out and see a child. They actually don't have access on a device to the information that they need. They have to drive for an hour to the office. They have to log on to a system. They have to look at the information, then go out and see the client. They then bring that information back, and you know that can be hours later. They have to put it on the system, and it's about 8 o'clock in the morning when they've finished doing that work, and of course then the day starts. Now again, we know that that is not a great way of doing the work, and that there are simple ways that we can really make that work better for them. We want to make sure that the information is accessible and open to the people that need it. So at the moment we have a very relatively closed kind of system where people in fax can find information, but at times foster carers need something, at times a client needs something, our NGOs need information, and we need to make sure that we can share that in a way that is secure and appropriate for privacy kind of rules and regulations, but at the same time, when someone needs a bit of information and it's important for a decision that they're making for a child, they should have access to it quickly. Of course, with being able to access it in different places at different times, it also means that we need to make sure it's secure, and so we need to think about that because this is very important personal information about these children. We need to make sure it is secure. And we need to have something that is a unified system. I think probably that's the technical bit that I hand to you.
I think because it is not one system, what we don't want is to have a whole bunch of stuff that caseworkers have to use or navigate. It needs to be one experience. So it needs to be clear how this ecosystem comes together, I think is what we're trying to do. And I think the last one is our preference definitely is to buy things, not build things, and as a service. Look, just quickly in terms of how we're organising ourselves, this is really about the core systems replacement bit, but just so you are aware, we are managing our current environment. We are focusing with districts on some ideas that they've come up with that we're trying out, but really this process, I guess, is about the third box there and kicking that core systems replacement bit off. So we had to get to one of these. Because we do need to, we're not going to throw you a whole bunch of cartoons and craft and say good luck, but we're not going to give you 3 layers beneath this either, right? So this is our reference architecture, and it sets out all the capabilities that we think we need in terms of solving some of this problem. We don't want to give you the layers beneath this because we don't want to constrain the conversation at this point, but to be sure there is that detail we have been working on. I'm not going to go through each box at this point. We will send this out. I think what is important is, at this stage, we're mostly interested in the coloured bits. So not so much the technical services, not so much definitely not the ERP, finance, HR systems, but we are interested in contract management, which we currently do in our CBIL solution. So the coloured bits are the bits we're interested in hearing more from you about. And just to map that to what we currently have, first of all, you notice there's lots of gaps. So we don't have a lot in the mobility space, in the client channel space. But the red ones definitely are up candidates for replacement. Do note though that in terms of the corporate system, SAP is a strategic direction for fax, and we are remaining on our Oracle warehouse.